right, so we've had an incredible day of amazing programming, but we've decided to switch things up a little bit in terms of format. So the next 20 minutes or so are going to be a game show. I'm a professor, not a game show host, but we'll see how this goes. I'd like to invite the panelists here just to say why you're interested in the environment and how you got to this point caring about sustainability.
Well, hello, I'm Hayden Begley. I'm very happy to be here. I am an activist on the EMA Activist Board. I'm a lifelong environmentalist, even against my will. My dad was an environmentalist, so I was born into it. You could say that I drank the Kool-Aid or the apple didn't fall far from the tree, but I am very, very happy that I was born into it and that I had this lifelong experience being an activist and an environmentalist. Yeah, I am a transit activist primarily. I see the need to decarbonize our transportation, and part of my transit activism has been around public transportation. So I am actually working now at Metro, LA Metro, which is in charge of the LA public transportation, and helping green initiatives there. So.
It's really cool. I didn't know that about you. Hi, I am Annalesa Fisher. I am an actor and a shark activist. I've been fascinated and obsessed with sharks since I was very, very small. And for as long as I can remember, just trying to spread as much education about ocean conservation and bringing more positive light to sharks, no thanks to Jaws, as much as we possibly can, because without sharks and without the food chain and without our coral reef beds, we may as well suffocate on this planet. So yeah, I do a lot of education spreading about it and just trying to get people on the side of doing better for our ocean. So happy to be here, happy to support EMA. It's great.
My name is Armen Nahapetian. I am an actor, and I'm 17, so I still have a lot to learn and a lot that I can do. But I think that being here, I can do that in the most fun way possible. I grew up at the beach. I did junior lifeguards my entire life. Besides acting, the beach is my passion, and I take marine biology. So I just want my kids and future generations to be able to experience what I got to experience, and I just want to protect our environment and especially our beaches.
Well, great. So we're going to start right into our questions. So I will say that these are a lot on environmental impacts of products. And a lot of it is really trying to help customers, individuals, trying to help individuals try to figure out what the best environmental options are. Because even as someone who studies this for a living, it's not always clear what the best thing to do is. And so hopefully we'll get some big guiding principles on if you're trying to do the best thing for the environment, what is that and how can we pass those messages along? And so we'll start right in, and Hayden, I think you will have the very first question that we will give you. So we all know the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle. What's the most important one?
A, reduce.
That is correct.
Yana Cohen is proud of me. I can see her smiling.
Well, and I think this is a really important one to start out with, right? Because we always hear reduce, reuse, recycle, and often we skip right ahead to recycle. And I think Asher said it earlier, where it's more than recycle at this point. We need to move way beyond recycle, because it actually is a hierarchy. First, we need to reduce the products. If we can't reduce, then reuse, and if all else fails, then recycle. And it really is in that order of importance. All right, and so just as a professorial hint, that can help on some of these next questions.
No.
All right?
Perfect.
All right. And so, Annalesa, we'll go to you. All right, you ordered a big lunch and have tons of leftovers left over. What is probably the best option to do with your leftovers? Do you leave the leftovers at the restaurant to avoid the impact of the takeout container? Do you take your leftovers home and be sure to eat them? Do you compost your leftovers and recycle the takeout container? Or leave your leftovers in the fridge until they form their own ecosystem? What is the best choice?
I feel like there are so many pros and cons to all of these. Oh, goodness. I mean, I would have to say C.
So, and C is great because all of these are good options. But if you're really trying to reduce environmental impact, it's about the food more than the packaging itself, right? So, yes, we want to compost, yes, we want to recycle, but the biggest thing is to make sure that we actually eat our
Consume
food
them.
waste.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Clean
that
plate
reduce
club.
food waste, right? So going back to those basic principles, the first thing we want to do is reduce food waste. If you can't reduce food waste, yeah, then composting is great. All right, Armen, we're up to you now. Let's see. All right, so for the average American, what action will result in a larger improvement in climate emissions? Is it eliminating one 40-mile car trip or giving up disposable plastic water bottles for an entire year?
I want to go with B, but I think it's the car trip.
You are correct. Yes. And so this is one of those trying to figure out relative environmental impacts. Yes, plastic waste is really important and does have climate impact, but when we think about climate impact, transportation emissions are so important. And so when we think particularly about fuel economy of current vehicles, it really is often drawing down transportation emissions. Yes, we definitely want to reduce plastic waste, but if you're just trying to figure out, hey, I only have so many decisions, I only have so much effort to put into something, trying to reduce transportation emissions are a great way of doing it. All right, Hayden, we are back to you. All right, let's see. All right, a typical mid-size non-hybrid 2024 SUV gets worse gas mileage than the 1908 Model T Ford. True or false?
That feels like a trick question.
Doesn't it though?
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, if I'm allowed to ask this.
By all means.
Wasn't there a form of an electric car early on? Maybe not.
There was.
Audience participation.
Okay, because I remember Ford's wife preferred her electric car over a internal combustion engine car. You and I are friends.
Good history lesson here too.
I'm gonna say it's true.
So it actually is false, but you are correct that it is a trick question because it turns out they're about the same. At about 21 miles per gallon, the Model T Ford has about the fuel economy of many of our SUVs today. And so just recalling back to Toyota with 51 miles per gallon for the Camry, right? And so thinking about what opportunities that has for overall fuel economy. But great job in terms of puzzling it through and realizing it was a trick for sure. All right, Annalesa. Let's see what we have here. All right, I brought my prop. So how many times would I need to reuse this reusable coffee mug before it has less environmental impact than a standard disposable cup? 5 to 10 times, 100 to 200 times, more than 500 times, or as many times as you can before you forget it somewhere.
Okay, this also feels like a trick question because wouldn't it just be one time? Because technically you have a cup, you use it, you throw it away. That you're not throwing away, you're putting right back on your shelf, or you're already using it a second time.
So
wouldn't
you're
it-
saying none of the above.
I
Well, think
mean, I would say A, but my answer is once.
Okay, excellent. So, and actually this is a great point because when we think about reusable items, right? So think about how much materials have to actually go into making this mug. And so if we handed these out every single time we handed out coffee and then we just threw these away or recycled them, that would be an amazing amount of resources used. And so when we talk about reusable items, we obviously want to transition from single use to reusable, but we need to reuse them enough times.
That was my assumption. was that
Exactly.
why would you throw them away?
And so you actually need to reuse them enough times. So if you're just forgetting them or leaving them somewhere, or you have one and you're like, but I actually like this one better, you can see this is mine. I've reused it many, many times, well beyond the 100 to 200 times
Wow.
that it will take to actually reuse. And again, this is, a lot of resources are consumed in making these really durable mugs. They're durable for a reason, right? And so in order to pay back, the environmental payback period of actually creating durable items we actually do have to reuse them a large number of times often. And so yes, reduce, reuse, recycle, reusable is often preferable, but if you don't think you're actually going to be able to get the 200 uses out of it, it sometimes can be preferable to use a single-use item. Does that gel? Does that make sense?
Would you say that it is better then to have like one mug that you do use, that you actually are bringing to coffee shops, you are reusing, than to do that? Because that's what I would do.
Find one you love and hold on to that.
Decorate it with stickers.
Yes, make it yours.
Put a Apple reader on it so that no one can steal it from you.
Right, and make sure that you just reuse it to the extent that you can, rather than just saying, oh, I like that one, that's great, or oh, I like that another one. And so just really, really, again, kind of getting rid of that disposable culture. What we don't want to do is have reusable items used as semi-disposable items, and that actually can cause more of an environmental impact. So great puzzling on that one. All right, Armen, we're up to you. All right, and by the way, these are all very tricky questions, I should say. And so a lot of these are informed by talking to public, talking to realizing that the research always doesn't necessarily come through in terms of what the environmental impacts are. So if you're not getting all of them right in the audience, there's a reason for that. These are actually very tricky. All right, so Armen, we're up to you. You're standing in the coffee aisle with dozens of choices. What contributes the most to the environmental impact of coffee? Is it the packaging, the transportation from the country of its origin, or growing and roasting the beans?
I think it's growing and roasting the beans, because deforestation and taking down natural habitats.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, in fact, C, great puzzling. And I think this is like an overall generally good rule of thumb, is we often care a lot about the packaging. Consumers, when we're looking at things, we look at packages, we judge things on the packages, and packaging absolutely has an environmental impact, but it's the thing inside the package that almost always has a greater environmental impact than what it's wrapped in or where it's transported from. Absolutely, those have environmental impacts, but it's usually the thing inside the package that actually matters more. So great intuition there. All right, Hayden, back to you. True or false? When recycling is available, people tend to consume more overall.
Oh, I would say that's absolutely true. I would say that there's a false narrative that you think you're recycling, so you would use more plastic.
And that is absolutely and depressingly correct. But I think, especially when we are talking about recycling, it's exactly what you're saying, is that often, and various studies have been conducted on this in various contexts, and it's been shown that, people start to develop a bit of license when they realize that recycling is available, that, hey, it's okay if we consume a little bit more because, recycling is here, and so that's fine. It's going to be all right because, someone is basically taking care of the environmental impact.
And a lot of people don't know the rules of recycling, which I'm sure somebody here has already gone over them, but you can't recycle things that have food on them as well. And if there's a bag with a bunch of items with food, they'll throw the whole bag away. So let's say you even threw away, you even recycled a water bottle, it would be clean. The whole bag gets thrown away. None of it is recycled.
No, and that's a great point. And so it again goes to that entire idea of recycling is important and insufficient. And so we need to educate consumers both on how to recycle and also that recycling doesn't actually erase all of the environmental impacts that happened before we actually throw it in a bin. So great job. All right, next up. All right, Annalesa.
Sorry, we're just laughing at the comparison between mine and hers.
Hayden's like, true.
True.
These are entirely random. They have
No, I get it. It's fine. I understand.
selected on the
I'll take the bullet.
She's a great environmentalist.
But these are paragraphs that you're getting, so I apologize for that. All right, so you have taken over an environment. I'll start that one entirely over.
You got it.
You've taken over an annual barbecue that usually serves grilled chicken quarters, and you would like to make it more sustainable. What action is likely to have the biggest environmental improvement? Again, all of these are good, but do you hire a catering company that has a zero waste policy and uses compostable utensils? Do you serve chicken satay skewers? Or do you serve some really tasty falafel instead of the chicken?
What is a chicken quarter?
Oh, so That is an excellent question. So it is literally a quarter of a chicken.
Of a whole chicken.
A quarter of a whole chicken.
So we're talking, they have like 9 chickens, and they're taking a quarter from each chicken.
So they slice it into 4. So,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so one
4 quarters
chicken,
in one chicken.
One chicken goes into 4 portions.
Okay, all right. Slay. What is falafel?
And that
I'm determined to get this question right.
And you are, in fact, correct. And again, all of these are good answers, right? So going zero waste is a great policy. Hiring a catering company who actually is caring and thinking about sustainability. Chicken skewers, that's actually going to reduce your portions and therefore likely lead to less food waste, which
But
is
it doesn't
great.
matter with how the chicken. I mean, it goes back to what we talked about with the big fishing. It's like it doesn't matter. You eating the fish is contributing to the big fishing industries, which is contributing to destroying the oceans. You eating chicken is contributing to these big chicken industries, which is the carbon emissions and the way they're treated and X, Y, Z and forever and ever.
Absolutely. Yes, I could not have said it better myself, right? And so this entire idea of when you look at animal-based protein sources versus veggie-based protein sources on an environmental basis, the veggie source is nearly always going to run out. At the same time, though, if you are in an environment where that isn't a possible swap, just eliminating the possibility of as much food waste is also a great idea. So if you are going to have an event that has animal-based protein, really thinking through how to reduce the potential for food waste rather than those
Plate Club.
big old chicken quarters.
Invite your garbage disposal friends that eat
Exactly.
everything.
Exactly, yes. And making sure that you plan accordingly, too, so you're not giving them a huge portion that there's no possible way that they could clean Plate Club. All right, Armen. All right, in a typical U.S. household, what consumes the most energy?
Heating, cooling, lights, hot water.
Oh, heating, cooling, lights, and hot water. Yes.
I'm gonna say lights.
So lights is a great answer, and they do certainly consume energy. As it turns out, for most households, it is heating. And so that really goes to if folks are trying to improve the environmental impact of their house, really thinking through how to reduce heating loads. So using a smart thermostat, using weatherizing and caulking strips. Yes, we can absolutely replace lighting, and that's good. It's great. And actually reducing heating loads is even better.
I was going to ask a question, if
Yeah,
I may,
please.
about heating. Is there a differentiating calculation for people who use like gas versus electric, or different wood burning? Is there
Yeah.
something you know about that? Is that too geeky for everyone?
Well, not for me, I will
Okay.
say. We can get seriously geeky. But no, it's a great question. And it actually turns out that it does change, like whether you're talking about gas or electric, and what state you're in, and where your electricity comes from. All of that does factor in. And no matter what, it still tends to be the highest. And so it will actually change on what your household is and what energy you use, but it does tend to be like the thermal
Good to
piece.
know. Thank you.
There you go. All right, moving right along. All right. Annalesa, the fashion industry is responsible for 2 to 8% of global
Hayden,
CO2.
this one is
mine.
Hayden.
I know it looks long.
I know you
Oh,
want to
right,
give me
sorry,
the.
yes, no.
You want to give me the paragraph
I
once
do.
again.
But
I'm gonna make Hayden answer. this
I'm just
one.
talking too much for
Well, we
people
were
to know.
talking, and so...
No, it's
yes,
all good.
no.
It's all good.
All right, Hayden. The fashion industry is responsible for 2 to 8% of global CO2 emissions. What is likely the best thing individuals can do to reduce their impact? Is it buy well-made quality items that you'll wear many, many times? Buy clothes made of flimsy materials if you only plan to wear them once or twice? Wash clothes in cold water? Or line dry clothes when possible? The best choice.
I feel like this is a little subjective.
Fair?
Well made, interesting. Let me see. I'm gonna have to say A, because one of the biggest things you could do to reduce the waste involved with fashion is buying secondhand. So I would say whatever would get the most wears.
And your intuition is correct. Yes. And I will say, of those options, I endorse 3 of them, which is the well-made quality items, the wash in cold water, and the line dry when possible. All of those do actually improve environmental impacts. B is really buying into fast fashion, and overall we want to generally avoid that from a sustainability perspective. All right, moving right along, only a few more here. So reducing air travel by one trip from LAX to JFK would improve your carbon footprint by 1.4 tons of CO2. What is that around the same as? 30,000 burgers, 3,000 burgers, 300 burgers, or 30 burgers?
I have so many questions.
I know.
Where are these burgers coming from? How are
So
the
just
burgers
CO2.
made?
We're just talking CO2.
In the process of making 30,000 burgers, or like?
Oh yeah, so this is overall, so feeding cows, growing
Okay.
cows, making all of the burgers.
From LAX to JFK. From LAX, it's either gonna be the big number or the little number. I'm gonna go with A.
So again, this is a really tough one. It actually is C, about
Oh, of
300
course it
burgers.
is.
But no. And I think that points out like just how hard. Hey! But in terms of like helping people like put these numbers in context, right? 1.4 tons of carbon, like I study this for a living. I don't know what 1.4 tons of carbon is, right? I did that calculation. I was like 300 burgers. Oh, that's interesting, right? But so I think part of it is trying to figure out how do we help people like grasp what 1.4 tons is. And again, it really highlights like transportation is important, but food, especially animal-based protein, is also important. So again, putting things in context. All right, Armen. Taking on which environmental challenge? So if you're trying to challenge yourself to do something sustainable for this year, what environmental challenge will have the most benefit over the course of a year? Is it remembering to bring your reusable grocery bags for every single trip that you go grocery shopping? Is it avoid buying yet another pair of black pants? Is it eat your leftovers that would typically go to waste at least once a week? Or is it drive 10 fewer miles every week? Again, all of these are good, but what's going to give you the best environmental benefit for the challenge?
Based on the first question I answered, I think it's D.
And you are, in fact, correct. We have some great panelists. Well done. And so just think about this, 10 fewer miles a week. And I should say, just to put it in context, that's twice the next number, which is reducing household food waste. And so again, thinking about what could you gain by spending 10 less miles per week in your car? What kind of time could you save? How could you put your trips together? 10 miles is not that much, but over time it adds up and can have some of the biggest environmental impact. All right, we are on to our last question since we're running out of time.
Oh.
And so actually I would love to hear all three of your answers since it is the last question.
This one's mine.
We'll go through each. Oh, okay. Yes, this is true or false. So each of you can answer this. 2/3 of Americans report being concerned about climate change and support policies to combat climate change. This is according to the Yale Climate Survey. Is that true or false? 2/3 both care about climate change and support policies to combat it.
Starting with me.
Yes, please.
The and support policies to combat climate change is the one that I don't know about. Am I going to be pessimistic here and say false? I think I'm going to be pessimistic. I'm going to be happy when I'm wrong. Okay,
All
I'm
right.
going to say false.
That's one vote for false.
That would be the same answer that I would have just based off of my own experience of like trying to get people to stop eating fish and them going, "Ooh, but I love sushi." So I would say false.
All right, 2 false. Any optimists in the room?
I'm going to be optimistic,
All right.
and I'm going to
That-
say I hope that's true.
All right, so 2/3 of our panelists are on the false side. So that answer is true.
Yay!
But the bigger thing about the Yale Climate Survey is that 80% of Americans would get this question wrong. And that is actually incredibly important, I think, to this room. because one of the things that we're finding is, and this has happened a lot during this conference, is we talk about climate and we talk about environment as if it's a fringe issue, as if we really have to convince people to care. And as it turns out, it isn't a marginal issue. It isn't even a bipartisan issue. It is a majority issue. And we systematically underestimate how many other people care about it. And so that is actually key in terms of thinking about storytelling, in terms of getting messaging out, that most people actually want to do things. They just don't really know what. And so I'm very hopeful with the rest of you and to see those of you who are coming into the environmental movement.
Thank you.
And all of your great knowledge on this. And for all of you who are showing up today, I hope you had a great time playing environmental trivia. And so thank you all so very much. Thanks to our panel for being game for the game show. And we'll have a good night.